All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr. We are previewing the other games on Tuesday night. Auburn at Vanderbilt, Alabama at Texas, Georgia at Texas A&M. Those are the three games we'll preview in this video. We did do separate videos for Tennessee at Kentucky, Florida at Mississippi State. Two top 25 matchups there between those teams. So check those out in other videos if you want our thoughts on those. All right, Max, let's get it started. 6 p.m. Central tip, ESPN or SEC Network for this one. Auburn at Vanderbilt. The Tigers coming off a home loss to the Gators. You would think come out a little bit angry here with this matchup, but they play Vanderbilt, who we know has just been kind of the giant killer at home. They've beaten Tennessee and Kentucky at home this season, also coming off of a home win against Texas. Nice performance there, I thought, for the Commodores. And now they get to host the Auburn Tigers. What a fun setup this is for the Commodores trying to knock off another top-tier team in Nashville.
I think it was on one of our reactions Saturday, one of the 5 hours that we were live for. I said, Mark Byington's got to just be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We've got a chance to get Auburn at home. We got a chance to catch them on a Tuesday. Maybe we catch them sleepwalking. Wait, they lost at home right before they got to come to Nashville? Come on. Yeah. Why do we got to catch them pissed off and focused as ever trying to bounce back? Unlucky. You know what has been unlucky? Every other team that's gone to play at Memorial, except for Mississippi State. But, yeah, Vanderbilt, 1 loss at home on the season. Past 4 home games. Win over South Carolina, win over Tennessee, win over Kentucky, win over Texas. You think there's any player on this Commodores team that doesn't wholeheartedly 110% believe that they are going to win this game? I guarantee you they fully believe they are going to win this game at home. Why shouldn't they, Blake? Why shouldn't they?
Well, they work the formula, maybe trademark that, the formula, which is they don't turn the ball over and they turn teams over, and they're still working it pretty well this season. And I think, Max, that is something we talked about throughout the year, right, in terms of how they're able to do that and the different things they can do with kind of that approach for Mark Byington and company. And so, as we say, when you have matchups like this, we're always trying to find the path. Like, what does the path look like to get you to an upset like this? And I think, that certainly is one of the starting points, right? Try to disrupt Auburn offensively, although Auburn's been pretty good at taking care of the ball. And again, you have to take care of the ball yourself, which we know Auburn, the way they play defense, not the easiest thing to do either. Certainly there's a size advantage for Auburn here. That's no question. That's kind of been the case every game Vanderbilt's played in. We kind of always have the same discussion there. But I think, Max, we always say, like, whose game is this? There is no other answer for Vanderbilt. Like, this is a Jalen Carey game, and that's it. Like, he has to have a big game here, because if he doesn't, then I think they're in trouble. But the good news is, as we said, he's coming off an 18-14 performance against Texas. We've seen him step up and have some big games in different spots this season. And he's been pretty consistent overall in terms of what they're asking for from him. And I think that's it. Like, he's got to have another monster performance here, knowing what you're facing on the other side. And we said, it's a team that, yes, you've got other guys here for Vanderbilt, whether it's McLaughlin and so forth, but I think Carey's the guy that they have to be able to rebound the ball here. And I think he's got to play a big part in that. There's so many ways, we said, Vanderbilt's going to have to be effective to beat this Auburn team. But to me, like, Jalen Carey's got to have another monster-type performance here.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's going to have to – it's going to have to be a full team effort rebounding. You're going to need everyone in there to help because when you look at some of the numbers, Vanderbilt isn't worst in the SEC. They're not statistically down there, but when you watch the games, you can tell, and especially with Auburn coming off the loss, you just get the feeling that Broom, Cardwell, these guys are just going to be playing with their hair on fire. So it's going to have to be a full team effort to keep Auburn off the offensive boards. And in a game like this, where the crowd could get into it, offensive rebound kick out threes are killer. Could play 30 seconds of good defense against this Auburn team. But if you don't if you don't finish it with a defensive rebound, like kick it out to any of those 40% shooters, can just take the heart right out of you. So defensive rebounding for Vanderbilt going to be probably the most important thing they do. But like when we've joked around with Auburn trying to find weaknesses, and we've said, well, maybe their biggest weakness is their temper. We need all the players, focused and not kicked out of the game. We're jokingly saying that because there's really no glaring holes in this team. One thing though that has been brought up before and that I kind of have a little bit of an issue is some of the shot selection. They are so good that sometimes they settle. They settle for when they could have had a better shot, and it hasn't bit them yet. And I think it came back to bite them in that last game. So is that a bad thing? Are they going to just be ultra efficient now and, it's going to be bad for Vandy? I don't know. I'm just trying to find something that Vandy can take advantage of. Maybe Auburn settles a little bit here.
Are you going to settle with your picks on the upset?
Yeah. No. Now,
oh my.
Maybe if Auburn won, and there's the idea of Vandy can catch him sleepwalking here. Maybe Jason Edwards and Tyler Nickel get Vandy out in front, and Auburn's playing from behind, and you get the turnovers going. But I think it's a bad spot.
Chris has weighed in with his scribe.
Bigs are a problem for Vanderbilt, and the Commodores don't defend the three well, which is an issue against Auburn. I would agree with that statement. Chris is going Auburn.
All right. AI Chris weighing in with his thoughts. Yeah, I'm picking Auburn too here. I know the trends tell us that Vandy could do this again, and they may be able to. I want to see Auburn defensively, what they look like here. Yep. That's what I'm most interested in. I want to see them against a Vanderbilt team that is pretty smooth offensively. And I think if you're Bruce Pearl, that's certainly one of the things you're looking at in terms of the defensive bounce back after what we saw Florida. Florida hit some tough shots. We're talking about the logo threes and all that, but they also eventually just kind of would get what they wanted sometimes. And I want to see how Auburn defends here because I think Vanderbilt is good enough offensively to make this very tricky. But yeah, it's like, can you pick against the team that you've had number one for most of the season, still the number one overall seed in the tournament as it stands today, to lose back-to-back games? It's hard to do. So I'm going to pick Auburn in this one as well. All right, here's another interesting one. Of course, if Auburn wins and Alabama were to win, it sets up quite a showdown, which either way, it's going to be most anticipated regular season game between the two in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. But before that, Alabama's got to head to Austin to play Texas. That game, 8 p.m. Central Time on ESPN on Tuesday night. So, like we said, Max, it's setting up for a big game on Saturday. The look-ahead spot, perhaps, for both Auburn and Alabama. Is that something we're underestimating here in making our picks for that previous game? Let's see if we're thinking about it for this one. But, of course, Alabama has lost one game since November the 30th. That was the home loss to Ole Miss. And I think, now if you look at it from the perspective of Texas, they've been a little up and down, but I still think overall Texas is playing some good basketball right now. They come off the road loss at Vanderbilt after losing at home to Arkansas. There's something about this one, Max, that I think it's kind of a tricky spot for Alabama because we've seen Texas play really well at home, and you can say, well, they just lost to Arkansas. But again, I think a lot of that had to do with Arkansas, kind of timing sort of thing. Still, if you look at Texas in SEC play, 5-point home loss to Auburn, 4-point home loss to Tennessee, 8-point home loss to Arkansas. They've beaten Missouri. They've beaten A&M. So this one's interesting, I think.
Yeah, Texas, a little bit unfortunate here lately with the injuries. Tremont Mark dealing with that right shoulder. Kendall Weaver has been out for a long time. He's been out for so long, we stopped mentioning him being out because it's just expected by now. And he's a guy that they could have really been using in SEC play with the physicality. He might be their most physical guy all around. Even though he's a little bit shorter, man, he is just tough as nails. So they really miss Weaver, and you can tell just by the last two performances, the loss against Arkansas and the loss against Vanderbilt, not taking anything away from those two opponents, but Tremont Mark would have most certainly had an impact. So watch the injury report on this one, because Tremont Mark, major impact on the game, but also Caden Shedrick has been dealing with a little bit of an injury, and so is Devin Pryor, the freshman that's been getting a lot of minutes lately. Excuse me. So Texas, Blake, banged up here mid-February, early February. It's that time of the year, and the injury bug has seemed to travel to the Moody Center and has gotten the Longhorns lately.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think this is one where you do kind of just look at it from a matchup perspective, and we've said, I mean, man, the thing with Alabama is, like, even if you want to pick on certain things about Alabama, which there's not a lot really right now to pick on, just look at the points, right? Like, look at the points they're putting up. And I think that's, still been such a constant, like in SEC play. Like, here are the numbers that they've scored: 107, 88, 94, the 64-point game against Ole Miss. That's the outlier here. 102 at Kentucky, 103 at home against Vanderbilt, 80 at home against LSU, 88 at Mississippi State, 90 against Georgia, 85 against Arkansas. And I know Chris has mentioned just the possessions, a lot of possessions in these games, and we know that because what was it? He said the last game that was under 70 possessions was the Purdue game. That was on November 15th. All these other games, like in SEC play, like you're looking at 75 or higher pretty much for the most part. And so if Alabama's getting what they want, then I think this is a tough spot for Texas, just because we just see Alabama convert time and time again in these kind of spots. And let's not forget, too, and this is not to take anything away from Arkansas, but Alabama's up 20 in that game in Fayetteville, right, in the second half. And so, they had played just a tremendous game up to the point where Arkansas just got hot, right, and you're just hanging on against a hot team. But I think, too, it's like you have kind of those combination of things. Alabama's going to score points. Texas has played well at home. It's like, man, this is the spread on this one will be interesting, too. I'm curious to see what this one looks like, Max, because I don't think we'd be shocked if this is kind of a smaller, short spread, right?
And that's where you get into that territory of, oh, no, this is going to be a 1-2 possession spread, but it doesn't feel that way to me when I look at the game. Am I missing something here? Am I overlooking something here? Why am I so confident in this short road favorite? Seen this before, Blake. Seen this before. Texas at home. Tough place to play. I try to emphasize it. I do my best. I feel like the Moody Center is still underrated in terms of how hard it is to play there. You ready to get into picks here?
Yeah, let's make picks. It's an intriguing one here.
So we've picked just on this Tuesday night slate. Heck of a Tuesday night slate. 5 games. Quite a few road teams being picked here. I don't know if all the road teams are going to walk away with W's as we're picking, but I'm going to go ahead with the Tide here. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Tide here on the road. I think the main difference is the bench. I think that over the course of the game, Trey Johnson's going to hit some shots. Jordan Pope's going to hit some shots. Kaluma's going to make some plays. Wouldn't be surprised if Texas is winning at halftime. Would not. But when it gets to those minutes where you start getting a little bit tired, the tough twos start hitting the front of the iron, and they're not falling anymore, and you're having to sprint back on defense, and you're getting tired. Alabama takes this one in the second half and going Tide.
All right. What about AI Chris?
AI Chris is taking Alabama. He does not trust Texas and the consistency that they've been playing with, or the lack thereof. Alabama has been playing great, and he still is saying that they haven't peaked yet.
He's still on the Alabama peaked. Man.
It's going to be transfer portal season in May, and Chris is going to be still saying that Alabama hasn't peaked.
Why is he? we got to get him on that the next time. Like, what's he talking about? Alabama has been tremendous. And I get it. Like, people say, well, we can be even better. Yeah, you can beat Arkansas by more points on the road or something. But I don't know. I feel like that's not completely fair to the Tide. Just my opinion. But I'm picking Alabama too. My worry is that one of these teams slip up before the big game on Saturday because it's so hyped at this point. The
Yeah.
biggest game ever. You worry. And I think Alabama is in the tougher position. Not to knock Vanderbilt, and maybe we find out the Commodores just are going to do this at home again. Maybe they just do it at home again. But this is a shorter spread, as we said.
Yeah.
Texas at home has been good.
Hmm.
And I think this is one where we can't underestimate sometimes, too, the motivation for these teams
Yep.
like Texas and Vanderbilt, who really need signature wins to get close to sort of getting off the bubble. They're probably not going to get off it just with this one game, even if they win. But to get closer and closer to getting away from the bubble and on the right side of the NCAA tournament scenarios. But, man, it's just like picking against Alabama. They've been so good. It's hard to
The
do, so I'm
injuries,
taking the
the
Tide.
Texas injuries
Yeah,
got
yeah,
scared.
I know. I'm picking the Tide here in this one too. All right, we wrap up with this one. This is Georgia at Texas A&M, 8 p.m. Central Time on the SEC Network. Yeah, so Georgia, as we said, coming off the home loss to Mississippi State by a point, had an opportunity there. That would have been a nice win because, as I keep saying, I think for Georgia, it's just trying to find the wins now. They're 4-7 in the SEC. They're probably in that last 4-in type range in the NCAA tournament. This would be a huge one. We just talked about it with Texas and Vanderbilt. That's what these three teams have in common, all kind of hovering around that range still. Would obviously be a big win to go win at Texas A&M, who, as we mentioned, looking like a potential number 1 seed type resume that the Aggies are building after that road win at Missouri. Now get 4 of their next 5 at home. Man, that is a great spot to be in for Texas A&M. And look, the matchup here, Max, you know where I'm going. Like, I think it's what can Georgia do offensively against this Texas team on the defensive side. We talk about the Christmas tree of Ken Palm, where it's lots of red, lots of green. Georgia's offense is pretty much all red. Texas A&M's defense, when it comes to forcing turnovers, limiting offensive rebounds, so second chance opportunities, they're pretty good, as we know. Top 6 defense in the country right now. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, Max, for me.
I don't give Texas A&M's defense enough credit because they have got that defense just making life hell for the offense. It is just a nightmare to get consistent offense against Texas A&M. And if you don't hit your first shot, you're not getting another chance. They're cleaning up the glass. Farrell Payne has been an absolute monster the past few games. But the thing is Texas A&M known to have off shooting nights, known to not shoot high percentages. Georgia, tallest team in the league, can make life difficult, can alter a lot of shots, they've got a good interior defense. They're 10th right now in the league in 2-point percentage defense. So not good, not great, not terrible though. Middle of the pack in the SEC, but they're tall. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And Texas A&M is known to just kind of do the Obaseki launch into the paint. Just throw yourself in there. And what I'm trying to get at here is I think that Georgia, while I do not expect them to go to College Station and score, I think they can do some things to make life difficult for the A&M offense.
I think stylistically, this is not the worst matchup for Georgia. And I think there are some things you can guarantee with Georgia. Asa Newell, as we said, he's been about as consistent as any player in the league this season. And that's not even a joke. Like, he's a freshman. He's been about as consistent as anybody. That's how good that guy's been. And then we mentioned, like, Silas Demery's coming off a great game, his best game of the season, 23 points. Had 7 assists, 6 rebounds. Like, he was doing everything to try to will them to that victory against Mississippi State. If they can keep that going, if he can have another big game, well, all right, there's a couple things in your favor, right? And, we mentioned at times, too, like the potential of what a Dakota LeFew can bring to this team. That's where I think they need him to hit some outside shots maybe in a game like this. Hit a couple, step out, make a couple shots. That would be, I think, significant for Georgia. And I think that's where you're trying to get to. If you're going to pick Georgia to win this game and pull off the upset, it's just combining some of those things on the offensive side for me. And I know we talked about it from the other standpoint too, but I think it's combining some of those things and trying to find that path. And we also know that from this perspective, Max, we always talk about it anytime there's a game played in College Station. Free throws are going to be a name of the game here. And these are two teams that have done a really good job of getting to the free throw line. And so, which one is able to kind of, implement that in this game? I would think the Aggies have a better opportunity. And I just think, we'll make our picks, and I'll tell you it's clear as day, I think, for me, one matchup where this is just a brutal spot for a certain team.
If Texas A&M is not shooting well, if Wade Taylor's not hitting his shots and maybe they give Wilcher his, 5-10 minutes, he comes in and he doesn't hit one of his threes he usually does, and this is just a gross free throw, dive on the floor type of game, Georgia's going to be in this thing. Georgia's going to have a shot, 100%. But when you look at the point distribution, Texas A&M's defense, they are 16th in the league in percentage of points given up from two. It's the least amount of points given up from two. Georgia's offense, second from two. They really rely on points inside. I think that's just where they're not going to have enough. Right when Farrell Payne, gets a few fouls and you're like, oh, finally, Ace Newell finally has some time, has some space. Here's Solo Washington and Andy Garcia just battling like junkyard dogs down low. Andy Garcia will probably hit the floor 5-6 times in this game. I just think interior-wise, the depth, the consistency, I like A&M. But I'm telling you right now, if no three-pointers are falling in this game, Georgia's going to be right there with a shot. Chris has got A&M. He says, as much as it pains me to say this, Blake, you were right. He's talking about Georgia's offense. Give me the Aggies. So Chris and I both going Aggies.
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going back to it in terms of our picks because I think it makes the most sense. The numbers are just what they are. 51, 56, 65, 59, 69. That's the output on SEC road games for Georgia this season. They've not scored over 70 points or over 69 points once in road games in SEC play. And now they go play one of the best defensive teams in the country and one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country that I think will get second chance opportunities even if they're not making the threes. And so I will give the Aggies the better path to victory here. So give me Texas A&M in this one. All right, there you go. Our picks for those 3 games. 5-game slate on Tuesday night. Boy, could be a fun one with these games. Yep. One of the better slates, I think, of the season so far when you look at these matchups. So we'll have it all covered here at Southeastern 16. Hit that subscribe button, turn off your notifications, hit the like button as well. Lots of fun reaction coming to these games. We appreciate you guys watching as always. We'll talk to you soon at Southeastern 16.